For a game called Infinite, Halo Infinite sure was a bit of a minimum viable product. Now, it's one that I love playing, but obviously, Forge is delayed, campaign co-op is delayed, campaign shipped without a mission select, and if you're a long-time Halo fan like me, you might have been wondering, where's my Slayer playlist? Where's Team SWAT? Where's Team Doubles? A lot of these things that, of course, we have been used to or have liked in the franchise. And that's been a real sticking point for people, especially when you combine that with the Battle Pass being, well, the way that it has been and the progression. But the news today is that, well, 343 are actually really getting to work on these issues. Now, of course, in the previous video, we learned some funny things, Matt. As an example, turns out the construction of playlists with the challenge system was all super tied together, such that adding new playlists and having that work with the challenge system and all the progression was an actual challenge.
I'm not surprised.
That's what Sketch said. I thought it was kind of surprising, but there you go. I guess this is one of those things where the Slipspace engine, it can do what it does pretty well, but it's just not as mature as the other tools that they were using, so maybe there's just a bunch of functionality that's a little bit iffy, considering that this game seems to have been a bit of a year-and-a-half long sprint to the finish.
Yeah.
So, the first big bit of news. Halo Infinite multiplayer playlists. Yep, we're actually going to be getting stuff. So, here's from Community Manager. Let's talk about Halo Infinite playlists. We've been reading your feedback and we're working on plans to add Fiesta, Tactical Slayer, which is their new name for SWAT, and Free-for-All playlists as we speak. They won't land by December 8th, but the team is pushing to get them in before the end of the year. They say that their goal for the events is to try new modes prior to adding them into playlists. They'll be monitoring the playlist health after the 3 editions that we're going to be getting. They'll adjust their offering if needed. And also a Social Slayer playlist with multiple variations is in the works, because it's one of the big requests they've got, but it is not going to be ready until after the holidays. So we heard about that, and then a week later, we got more firm details. So Sketch, of course, in the last video, we talked about him taking to Reddit, basically just sort of leveling with the community, talking about what's going on. So he said that last weekend, he said he would be back once there are updates. Now he has them. A Slayer playlist is officially locked and loaded for next week's update, with Slayer, Fiesta, Free-for-All, and Tactical SWAT all being added Tuesday, December 14th, meaning that on the very day this is being recorded, these things are going to be added into the game. Now, I think this is great. This is pretty quick to actually get these things. Obviously, they should have been there from launch, but good. You know, these are core parts of the Halo experience. I think for a lot of people who are new to Halo, you know, they'll go into Team SWAT and get absolutely destroyed. I wonder how long it's going to take for the player base to call it Tactical Slayer instead of SWAT. Might take a little while.
Yeah, that's an interesting name change, but I think the thing that really got me about this is the fact that they said Slayer was going to be after the holidays. And
that's Social Slayer.
Social Slayer, yeah, but well, I suppose we'll go into it here, but they were going to delay all Slayer until after.
Oh, okay.
And then they actually decided, no, we're going to go for Slayer. We're going to boil back our plans to actually put it in the game before the holidays, which I thought was really, really interesting to me, because they took this stance of, okay, we'll do this properly. Wait, no, people really badly want this. Fuck it, can we get it in? Can we get it in? Even though, you know, they're just back from Thanksgiving holidays for a short while, and they just launched the campaign. So I'm really impressed with how fast they're coming back to feedback here. Yeah,
and I mean, a lot of this is stuff that their bosses ended up... I mean, this is the best they could do. They probably would have wanted a lot more time in this game if they could have had it. I think that year extension that they had was probably the most that they could have realistically got. But overall, this is them paying the price for a development process that started in 2015 and seems to have been, as per the Bloomberg report, a bit of a mess. Yeah. So yeah, what's going on then is, they had original, more large plans for the Slayer playlist. They've basically cut those back. So those new variants are not going to be there. But they're putting in there, as you said, which is fantastic. Now, also, there is an update coming that is adjusting challenges, removing some of the particularly frustrating mode-specific ones, which is good. That kind of sucked. Reducing some requirements for others, making the weekly ultimate challenge less intensive, and adding brand new challenges specific to the new playlists. says it personally, he's eager to check out a new challenge category that is based on accumulating player score. And I think this is a really good thing, because player score is, of course, earned as well by playing the objective, which is exactly one of the large criticisms that people had. So this is basically all fantastic news. It does come on top of how they humongously front-loaded your challenge XP gains. Now, your first game of the day, it's either 200 or 250. So they initially made it so that every game would give you 50. They then, for your first few games, massively ratcheted that up. So I think between this and between these things, we are in a situation where the progress through the Battle Pass does feel a lot better. That being said, it's not like the unlocks on the Battle Pass are particularly thrilling. I mean, I could see somebody being excited about, the big red flaming skull. But, about a slightly different shoulder blade or a slightly different, knee pad. So I think they still have this weird situation going on for their monetization. It is one that makes me wonder. I don't think you'll be aware of this, but they started to go way more stylized with the later on battle passes of the Master Chief Collections multiplayer.
Interesting.
Yeah, like way more out there. Like not Spartan armor designs that we'd seen before. So I have to wonder right now if they're in this situation where... basically, you're getting, I think it's most of the Mark IV, or, the traditional armor, you're getting that from your additional campaign unlocks. Then the Battle Pass this time around is building out a customizable, I forget exactly what it is. It might be the Reach era Spartan armor, but whatever it is, it's like quite themed. So I do wonder what happens when we start to get other themed Battle Passes.
Yeah, because obviously this one is Season 1 Heroes of Reach. So.
Yes. Right, so there's that. Now then. Campaign select. It is incoming. It basically isn't done yet, though. It's a weird thing where you can't replay missions in the campaign. Now, that said, certainly missions in this campaign do not, so far to my experience, hold a candle to missions in previous Halo campaigns.
Yeah.
It's a lot of delving into Forerunner ruins, which does evoke the more frustrating aspects of, I believe it was Halo 4, that was just, hey, do you like Forerunner ruins? Now, of course, the other side of that is that Zeta Halo is so much fun. You were standing behind me when I was playing the game in work, and even from your perspective, it seemed to really come across well.
Yeah, to me, it looked like it was taking all of the great mechanics of multiplayer, building on them slightly, having the grappling hook and allowing that really great Halo combat sandbox, but having the kind of dynamism of what a proper open world game feels like. So you have all these oh yeah, I'm going to approach this a completely different way, which is allowed by their overall design. So anyone can just go in and have all these different the whole emergent storytelling of open world stuff, as opposed to here's a tightly designed sandbox that's a level. So I think that's without having played the campaign yet, I would say, and not that I've played a bunch of older Halo campaigns, but I think I can understand a lot of the criticism of how this is going, which ultimately has ended up in you can't recreate the mission layout of this because you're changing the state of the entire open world because it's all interconnected in a way. So it's an interesting problem they've come into from this really, really core design change.
Yeah, and from my perspective, it seems like what happened is they had very expansive plans, then they had to cut it down and just polish up whatever they could into whatever this Halo is. And so far, I am really enjoying it. Even it's that sort of thing. Something can experientially be a 9 out of 10 or a 10 out of 10 as you're playing it. Good enough that you're just extremely happy.
Mm-hmm.
You can then objectively have loads of criticisms of it, but those almost don't matter. That's how I'm feeling with the gameplay experience of this campaign. And what it means to me is that if this is what happens when they are basically trying to turn development hell into shippable product, I would wonder what happens if, so let's just say they're going to take something like Zeta Halo as the open world sandbox basis of the next Halo campaign, but then because they have more time, if they're able to still have those classic Halo missions that do have more of the big set pieces. And then what happens, as I mentioned in the previous video, if you just have a few Scorpions just walking across the map, so you can get those other sorts of big spontaneous set pieces.
Yeah.
So all of this has me very, very convinced that this could be the start of a truly incredible Halo. Because for me, just going around with some generally likable characters talking into your ear, discovering some lore, having some fun gameplay, that's a great experience. Now, for me, as long as it's the weapon talking and not the pilot, who I think is a wet blanket, I've got to agree with people's criticisms there, that can be really strong. And it makes me think. You look at Halo 4, you look at Halo 5, there was bits to those campaigns where I thought, okay, this is good enough, I'm having fun, but it's too short. It's too short to pull off the story they're trying to do. And that means that it just feels like it's cut down and not really enough to be satisfying. And I have to wonder if being able to have whatever your count of missions is, maybe your 5-hour-long campaign, 6-hour-long campaign, or just the big set pieces, like a Halo, maybe even a bit longer, a Halo 3 size thing. You can do that, but then actually have that play out also with a big open space like this. You could really get a merging the best of both worlds that I think uniquely works for Halo. So very interested in where they could take this.
Yeah.
But sacrificing some of those things is a shame. As an example with Halo Infinite, the emergent gameplay is so fun this time around in the sandbox that you do want to experience it with a friend. So not having co-op and then not having the mission select in order to just jump into an experience, sucks. But it is stuff that is on the way.
Yeah, I think it's just interesting to me that they just clearly didn't have time to make the multiplayer experience, and they spend so much time on gameplay that they weren't able to get the experience they wanted. Because I don't know, I haven't seen the campaign reviewed very well so far from people who are looking at it from a less perspective of, I'm a really big Halo fan, but people who are going, I'm approaching this like I would any other game. I've seen a lot of people going, well, here's all of the things that, like you say, the parts that don't really mesh versus the good experiences side of it. And it's just it's a shame to me.
Put it this way, an Ubisoft Assassin's Creed open world would feel way better if you had the same movement mechanics as Attack on Titan. Now, I'm not saying that Ubisoft should do that, but this very much is an Ubisoft open world, right? It's this would be way more interesting if you had, as I said, a bunch of scorpions walking through it, or if the Marines and the Banished were actually interacting with each other in some form of dynamic way. It has nothing in its open world that is interesting. From that perspective. What it does have is an open world that is very fun to traverse through and extremely tight, evidently very well play-tested gameplay. So that basically does mean that it's quite fun. From the narrative perspective, I've basically seen people be like, it's not a Halo 5 again. And I think a lot of people are just happy about that. It seems like it is by no means the best, also by no means the worst, and generally is striking above where 343 have hit. It's that thing with 343. I've always liked their ideas, and I've always liked some of their characterizations. I think the whole Chief Cortana rampancy storyline stuff was done really well in Halo 4. It's just they lost their way so much with Halo 5. And then what happened, and you'll know this from other games that you've played, they really went into their expanded universe.
Yes.
The deep lore of the Forerunners and the humans and the Halo rings and the Flood and all of that, which is interesting enough. It is stuff that did come from the novels, but for a lot of people it meant that Halo 4 was quite hard to comprehend and felt pretty damn different from Halo 3 and from Halo Reach, which is what they knew from Bungie. So it's that weird thing with the narrative where in this situation, they've done what they've done with Cortana in Halo 5. It's very hard to just suddenly fix that problem. They've written themselves into certain corners. They've done all of this stuff where now, it's, well, you defeat the Covenant, what next? Okay, we've created the Banished. But certainly so far with the Banished, there isn't that mythos to them. The Covenant and the Great Journey and all of that. And then you kind of learn a little bit more about what the Prophets are really doing and, all of that. And it's not like the most riveting plot ever, but it does have this grander, deeper scale. Whereas the issue they have with the Banished, which is the main villains here with Atriox and Escharum and everything, they do just feel like a bunch of real angry alpha dude bros. And it's that does mean that it's fun. It does mean that when there's a voice actor just screaming at you, whatever, Spartan, bare your fangs, we're going to fight. There's a little bit of, just, that that's how it feels.
Yeah.
But one of the things with Halo is that it had an overall feeling of Mythos, and a little bit of texture behind the action that I think evoked this sense of grandeur and scale. That's something that went fantastically with Martin O'Donnell's score, and went fantastically with what made Halo feel so unique and fresh, which was, I mean, you could just say, oh, you're just walking through the hills. But you look at the Halo ring, it's got that sense of weird scale to it. And those are lots of the parts of Halo that just felt so unique and special that people really loved. I mean, a big Bungie skybox. Like, look what they did with Destiny 2. And lots of that is here. I think the narrative just doesn't have as much of that, and they get a little bit mired in, you know, I want to say the nerdy details. Now, of course, if people know how we cover World of Warcraft, they'll know that we love the nerdy details, but sometimes they're not the most conducive to the core of the story. And I think the main thing here is just the pilot's a wet blanket. Like, I get it. He's supposed to be the relatable human character, but...
You don't want that in Halo, do you?
You're the chief.
Yeah.
And if you look at all of the other soldiers in the game, they're always like, hell yeah, let's go. So him being there is no fault to the actor or anything like that. Yeah. He's just fairly annoyingly written, and I think that can be quite off-putting.
Yeah, I mean, I think, first of all, you don't want a human in that thing that grounds you. You want to exist in this big, larger-than-life world, I think, a lot of the time. Yeah,
well, the point was that Cortana would ground you. Like, that was the whole thing. Cortana came across as being more human than the chief.
Yeah.
Which is like the sort of the thing.
Yeah,
so then when you do away with Cortana, how do you deal with that? And thankfully, you know, the weapon is not Cortana feeling really at all, even though it still is Jen Taylor, but she's different. You know, I'm not, my opinion isn't settled. Generally, it is likable.
Yeah. I think there's one thing I want to go back to what you said that kind of stuck with me, and it's the idea of expanded universe and stuff, and then how they delve into that a little bit. I think that there's something that I don't know if anyone's really learned this too well, or, you know, if any writers or game producers have it written down in a piece of, or I guess film producers will have it written down in like a book of advice, but I feel like you want the expanded universe to exist for the audience who want to get into the expanded universe, but they aren't everyone who plays your game. You never want to go too deep into that, because what for the people who haven't read the books? And you've got this problem. If you want to make a game that will have an expanded world, not a game in the expanded world, if you kind of follow, I guess, something that has that sense of mythos that writers can expand upon, kind of like with the like really strong earlier expands from the World of Warcraft books and stuff. It was always like, oh yeah, extra detail for this good world, fantastic, as opposed to, oh, now we're living in all of this stuff together.
Yeah, precisely. So overall, they've left me in this situation where I really do think that they have basically regained a foothold for Halo. I think that this Halo is Halo. It's modern and it is Halo, and it's modern in a way that I actually like. In much a similar way to how you play Brutal Doom, the mod. It's fucking awesome. Thank you, Total Biscuit, for getting everybody on that train. And then you play Doom Eternal, and you're like, okay, Doom Eternal definitely feels very modern. Or, I mean, I'm still one of those people who's like, there's something about the simplicity of Doom 2016 I really like, but the new Dooms anyway. It's this like very successful modernization of an older game format. I feel like they successfully did that for Halo. They've created a beautiful combat sandbox, beautiful multiplayer. They just need to fill out their feature set and get it to be a full, complete Halo experience, because right now it is not that. Once they do that, I think they're in a position where Halo can basically return to the fore and no longer be in this weird situation with Halo 4 and Halo 5, where frankly, I never really felt, as somebody who was paying attention to games, I never felt that they caught on. I think Halo Infinite can actually catch on, and that makes me very hopeful for the future, given all of the really strong core competency that they have displayed with this game, obviously through the lens of that emerging from development hell.
Yeah, I mean,
good as it could be.
Yeah, I mean, you combine core competency, you combine the kind of getting magic out of the end of it, and it ultimately the decisions they've made working. You combine that with responding to feedback very quickly, being willing to, you know, not go with the great plan they have and adapt really quickly, like they've shown by going, you know, it's like them having Slayer out before the holidays really speaks to me of someone there with the authority to make decisions made a decision that they went, I could almost imagine it going, someone's going, oh shit, Slayer, we'll throw in the social Slayers for after the holidays. And someone just went, no, people are going to play this over the Christmas holidays.
Yeah.
Give them Slayer. Just give them Slayer. It might not be perfect, but if they can have a Slayer playlist, they'll have more fun. That's what you want to see. So like them having feedback on, or responding to feedback on every front feels great to me from a good standing point. And to me, it's like, it's the thing that immediately stepped into my head when I was thinking about this is the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step, and 343 have definitely taken at least a couple of steps that if you track exactly what they've done forward, even a year, especially when I imagine their work will spin up a little bit after, because they went from Thanksgiving into winding down for the holidays. So I imagine we'll see a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
And if they keep taking feedback and keep responding to it, I see Halo Infinite will. I mean, they're not going to do what other companies do and release Halo Infinite 2 to take all the thunder away from next year. So
I certainly wonder how the next campaign will come out. I don't think it's going to be Halo Infinite 2, as you said.
No.
And whatever it is, I'm probably pretty fucking excited for it. So there we go. Only right that we properly bring this up to date after the video of the weekend. They are doing the right things. Obviously, it's not ideal that things happen this way. I think they would very much agree internally as well. But it all seems to be going in the right direction. So that's that. I'm pretty happy. Once I'm done with Endwalker, I'm going to see what John Halo, I'm going to see how it ends for John Halo.
Same,
So
honestly.
not finished yet. All right. Let us know what you've been playing. Thank you for listening. There's other videos on the channel for you to check out. And with that said, farewell.